Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos, and welcome to Tindral Sage Swift, the Dragonriding boss, tested on heroic difficulty on the PTR. This actually was the most fun I've had on a heroic PTR testing boss, I think, ever. I was very skeptical of the Dragonriding mechanic in Mythic. So to start off, the boss just has a fairly simple phase 1. Those falling stars get taken out of the raid. Mass Entanglement does a small amount of damage to everybody in that little circle you can see. Let me just check my quality here. Oh yeah, it's source. All right, that's the best we're getting. So yeah, sorry about that, but you want to be kind of tightly grouped because when the entangle goes off, these vines will come up and root you. And now you can break out of them with blink, shapeshift, freedom, tiger's lust, those sorts of effects. But if you don't, you have to actually kill them, and it's important to kill them, especially the ones in melee. Because pretty quickly you're going to start being in a situation where you might have this fire on you, or you might have a mushroom on you. The fire comes from these debuffs, so people will get a magic dispellable debuff on them, and then when it gets dispelled, they'll drop a fire puddle under them. So we were kind of dropping those over on the side and calling for dispels. And then, yeah, here's again another set of fiery vines, and you can see there's these mushrooms happening during as well. Now, these mushrooms hit for a lot, and if you're rooted in them, you're going to have to press the defensive or you're going to die. They're designed to be soaked by a tank, and the way they work is they deal a bunch of damage, like 600k physical, 400k fire, to anybody that's in them when they explode. But if they hit nobody, they hit the whole raid for a bunch, and if you soak 2 in a row, you take way more. So that's how that tank mechanic's supposed to work. And then here's the dragon riding phase. So you have to grab one of these feathers, sort of like a list resort in the Firelands, and then you get to take flight. And the boss is going to another part of the tree, and you're following the boss, although I'm actually a little bit ahead of the boss here. And the boss creates these fire orbs that'll do a bunch of damage and slow you down if you hit them. There are these green orbs as well, and the green orbs, when you hit them, turn into one of those speed boost things for everybody else, and for you as well. You'll get a speed boost, and you'll get 1 stack of a 5% damage amp. In this phase, it's supposed to stack up to 10, although I've heard that you could sometimes maybe get it to 11 in this phase, and then the next time that happens, you can get it up to 15, so 50% damage amp that happens here. Then the boss lands, and ideally, you can land at the same time or ahead of the boss if you do that dragon riding phase correctly. You catch up to the boss, you land, and you have to break this shield before the supernova cast finishes. As soon as you do, the supernova cast stops, and you get to continue the fight. If not, it wipes the raid. Then we get to the second platform. There's a new set of mechanics here. Instead of moonkin mechanics, the boss now has some tree mechanics. And so you get these roots again. The roots actually line up with these falling star circles, which do a moderate amount of damage. So a little bit of healer worry there if you all stacked for those, which we were doing. Another set of mushrooms. I'm soaking first and third. The other tank is soaking second and fourth, is how we were handling this. The boss also has a stacking fire damage over time effect on every auto attack, so you want to taunt swap for that. And then we did our dispels there. Ideally, we wouldn't do them towards the middle of the room. That was something we kind of figured out after this pull, was we want to do those at the edge of the room in this phase and move across towards where those fire puddles were dropped, but that's okay. That Tranquility of Flame mechanic puts out a bunch of seeds. Each one you soak it does more damage, or it's supposed to in the dungeon journal. And if you don't soak them, they turn into those trees. You can see that one tree that is pulsing over there in that fire puddle, which is going to it's supposed to do raid-wide damage. I think it was maybe bugged here, because it definitely wasn't very bad, and we had a few spawn over the course of the fight, so that is something that maybe will work differently when this actually comes out. Is a tree spawning might be more of a wipe, but there you can see that tree is just pulsing, and maybe it's working, maybe it's doing a little bit of raid damage. It's hard to be sure. We definitely had a lot spawn and were able to live it, so... here comes another one of those Tranquilities. So again, this is doing a bunch of raid damage, spawning a bunch of seeds, and we were running over the seeds to try and pick them up. You can see I have a bunch of stacks, but it's still not hurting me too badly to soak each of those seeds. And now we're going to be getting into our second intermission phase here. So again, the boss goes into owl form, goes into flight form, drops a bunch of feathers, starts pushing us back away from it, and we pick up our feathers. I grab one there. Each person can only grab one, so you kind of want to be a little bit loosely spread. Now, in this intermission, you can collect up to 15 stacks, I think, of the green buff, but we didn't do it on this pull, I don't think. We didn't get all of them. There are a bunch of extra ones there. You can see what happens when you get hit by the fire. I got hit by that so that I could show you in this video exactly what would happen. That was intentional, and it slows you down and does a little bit of damage to you. If you get hit by a few of them, you're going to start being in some actual danger. And you can see we got to 11 stacks of our buff here. So we could have certainly done more, but we used Lust here to just break the supernova. Ideally, you would just have Lust for on pull or probably for the end of the fight. The phase pushes here were timer based rather than percent based, so maybe just send on pull, and there's no need to have it for P3. And yeah, then we were just, our plan here was to take the boss to the edge and sort of move around in a circle, because in this phase, there's no more dragon riding intermission afterwards. The boss just keeps cycling through Moonkin and tree form mechanics, both the phase 1 and the phase 2 mechanics, until it dies or you die, is I believe how this is going to work. Some nasty overlaps happen here that didn't happen in the previous phases. So here we're going to have, for instance, these fire swirlies, fire beams, which is a phase 1 mechanic that I didn't talk about yet, which is just big swirlies that you dodge and then they make tornadoes. And you dodge those tornadoes. And you can see there's also mushrooms overlapping here, and the mushrooms are back where the boss was. We had our other tank bubble and soak all 4 of these tornadoes, or these mushrooms, while I just taunted the boss and moved it away. Then we have another set of these tranquility seeds. You can see what happens if you have the boss near the edge of the room on these seeds, is that it sort of is nice because it clumps them, but look, there's actually a seed that's kind of out over on the edge of the room that turned into a tree. And that one would have been really nasty to soak, so maybe you don't want this near the edge of the room, or maybe it won't work that way when it actually comes out. And then again, we're just continuing to get these overlaps, mass root into these circles, a bunch of raid damage, and then mushrooms to soak. And at this point, we're starting to kind of get beat up here. Now we've got another fire pillar spawning right after that, so we've got to get away from this, as there are now fire tornadoes coming out of them as well. And most of our raid is dead at this point, so that is where we are kind of out of time. The boss casts Fiery Growth here as well, which I think is amping up the intensity of the damage. I'm not 100% sure on that. And then we're just rinsing and repeating, I think. This is as far as we saw in the fight. This is our best full, which is our first heroic boss that we weren't able to kill during testing here. We definitely could have gotten it lower, especially if we just got all 15 stacks and didn't lust the second supernova. But overall, it was really fun. The tank mechanic's fun. The dragon riding mechanic, as long as it ends up not being too difficult, which it didn't feel too difficult here, because when there's a lot of difficulty on a mechanic like that, then it starts to get to a point where, like, whether your button worked exactly the way you wanted, which for dragon riding it doesn't always, whether that actually worked or not, if that ends up deciding whether you wipe or not, that's going to feel pretty unsatisfying. But at least on heroic testing, it was genuinely a very fun mechanic, and I'm looking forward to this fight. Hopefully on Mythic, they correctly land most of the difficulty on the platforms and not in the dragon riding section. But that was the second to last boss, Tindral Sage Swift, the much feared dragon riding boss. Very fun. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Check out the description if you want a link to a playlist with all the other testing that's been done so far. Next week, there'll be Mythic testing as well. So those videos will be coming up too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.